Hello, Mike. How are we?
All good. All good. How are you, fella?
I'm great, thank you, mate. Wow, it's so good to see you. It's been about, I don't know, 10 years or something.
I think it's been longer than that. Yeah.
How you been in all that time?
Yeah, really. Yeah, really good. Really good. I'm very busy doing many things. Many kinds
Right.
of different things. Really.
Yeah,
So
it's so good to have you and to see you here. I like, as I say, it's good to catch up anyway and just to check in with you and see how you're doing and stuff. What I think maybe just what is a good place to start is I guess my sort of my first meeting with you in Lipper was, I felt like I'd been playing and been doing a lot of touring and been playing in lots of local bands and all that kind of stuff since a really young age. I was, about 6 years old when I started.
mm,
And then I felt like I had all kinds of like really sort of, I could get away with a lot by listening really well and just really tuning into bands and listening to the things I liked. And then anyway, one day I walk in and I meet you, and you were the only person on the planet that could see all the things that were going like kind of wrong with things to do with technique and things to do with playing and stuff like that. How, I guess a good place to start is, how did you sort of get into music? How did you get to the level that you got to at that moment? And, what was your impulse to to take it as far as you took it?
well, my beginnings. I mean, I began late. I was 15 when I started, so a lot later than you. I mean, I was listening to music before that, and listening to jazz actually. I went to see, lots of really good bands, Weather Report and Pat Metheny and et cetera, when I was pretty young, sort of 13, 14. So, and by the time I was 15, I was nicking my brother's guitar. He was a singer and he had a guitar. So I was nicking that. And just because I had sounds in my head that were kind of more advanced than my fingers could play,
Right.
I had all these sounds in my head, like these lush chords and whatnot. Then what I started to do was I started to tune the guitar a la sort of Joni Mitchell, because Joni's got like 50 odd tunings,
Yeah.
And so I started tuning my guitar. So when you played the open strings, it already sounded lush.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And then I could put like one finger on, and there would be a difference, and it would be really nice. So that's what I started doing quite a lot of, and then very naturally, because I was never taught, very naturally I sort of got into it by listening to and wanting to emulate those sounds. So the sounds that I wanted to emulate were already kind of more advanced.
Mm.
Steely Dan,
Yeah.
Weather Report,
Yeah.
Joni, all those sounds were already permeating. And so I tried to emulate them. So a lot of the time, I missed that thing of going through the Beatles and going through
Right.
all those obvious, more obvious beginnings that people have.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So in terms of how you started to make sense of those sounds then and apply some of the theory to it, because obviously I would come to you a lot and say, what is this chord and what does that
Right.
mean? And you've got that knowledge. And was there a point where you felt that was necessary to understand that, or has that always just been a kind of something that's a side issue for you and you've had to do it for education purposes, or where does that come into it?
I think because of the way I came through, my ear was way ahead of my theory. So I could play you could play me a chord from an album or something, and I could play it back to you.
Okay.
But I couldn't tell you what it was
Yeah.
at that time. I had no idea. So, and I went to Manchester, and I used to be into, when I was around 17, I used to be into going into because I'd only been playing by about 2 years by that time, but I was really coming on. So I'd go into shops and I'd play and I'd wait for people to for their jaws to drop. I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it because he's this young kid and he knows all those sounds and he can play like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because I was fairly advanced then, and my ego was stroked by that.
Yeah.
And I remember going in to a shop and a guy was playing a standard and the chords were all over the place. And I was trying to follow him and I couldn't quite follow him. And at the end of it, he turned around and I thought he was going to do what everybody else did, which was say, "Man, you're amazing, blah, blah, blah." And he turned around and he said, "You're very good. You're going to be really good." He said, "But you've got to get your shit together."
Mm.
And it hurt me a little bit. I thought, because I wanted that validation. But it was the first person that was really understood where I was and was really honest about it. And it was a lovely thing for me. I walked out slightly sort of forlorn, but it really helped. So that's when I got into theory. That was around 17, 18. I started getting into theory.
Right.
Yeah. Because I went a bit nuts on it.
I mean, that was exactly my feeling towards it when I think you even used the same words. I think you said something like, "You could be really good, Ben, but you got to get your shit together." And I remember I had the same feeling of like, wow, that's the first person in my life that has ever seen that, and even seen that I'm trying to like get away with it, largely. So I've always thanked you for that and always remembered that moment. That was a really good thing. When we were doing a lot of workshops and stuff together and things, we'd be talking about again sounds and the sounds that make us feel something. What would you say is like your approach to songwriting and your own? You've got a number of albums out there. You've done a lot of collaborations and things with different people. One of my favorite albums is actually the one that you did with Roy Powell. I love that album, and that in particular, the solo that you did on Vemood. I thought that was just beautiful. I just absolutely, I always love that. But what would you say is kind of like your approach to songwriting and and that kind of?
I mean, at the moment, I'm writing an actual songs album. I'm writing the words and the music.
Right.
And it's the first time I've done that. I've written words and music separately because I've written poetry over the years.
Mm.
So just for myself, but not for wide distribution or anything. So right now I'm trying to get this process together where I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to find out what it is I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that is really important. And sort of allowing myself to hear and feel what I want to say.
Mm.
For me.
Absolutely.
And then because our stories translate. And they move to each other, and they kind of move over to each other. I can share something with you about my life, and you can say, "Huh, yeah, that resonates."
Mm. Yeah.
Because it's part of the human experience, and so if I move into my experience rather than thinking, how can I make people listen to me? You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't go from that angle. I go from, this is what it is, and this is the truth.
Yes.
And now you either listen or you don't. It's up to you.
And you just put it out there, and
yeah. So that's it. It's waiting for that thing, and I can write about that. I can write about that. About familial things. Things with relationships, friends, the way the world is, etc. But see how I feel about it, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to wait for that to come to you. You have to wait, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
rather
of course.
than jumping on the bus of other people's opinions, you know.
Yeah, and that's so difficult in the music business. I mean, that's something I've certainly found over the years. It's a large amount of it, particularly towards, you know, if you're going into pop, indie, record labels, all that side of things. It's very, I mean, the whole center of it is organized around at least what a minimum of what 5 to 10 other people think of your music and
Right.
how to put it out there. And here's what I think you should do. And here's, you know, I think the song should sound like this in order to get it to this. And then they want this. And it's very difficult. So would you say that honing your own identity is more important than that? And, than that, rather than listening to others and trying to placate people's opinions and things?
Well, I mean, occasionally you'll meet someone that you find that you can trust, that have got a good ear, and they can feel what you're doing, and they can support that,
Yeah.
you know, and bring something to it, I think. But sometimes people in that business, they kind of they speak or suggest things because that's their job.
Yes. Yeah.
And sometimes a good teacher knows when to leave the room, you know, to say nothing, you know, and have faith in what is happening, in the
Absolutely.
energy that is happening, you know. So that's important for me. So yeah, a little, you know, I carve my own path, really. Not that I've not had influences, some of the influences that I talked about right at the beginning. John Martin and all of those.
Yeah, beautiful.
All of those, you know, they're just natural.
Yeah.
It's all very natural, you know, and that's where I went. That was my thing. I was never particularly into, you know, fame for the sake of fame, and you know, I was always interested in nurturing what I did and finding out what it is that I really wanted to say. That was more important than playing, you know, 30,000 seater stadiums for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like as well that approach to it is almost like, but you know, creating a fire, you know, you're just trying to find the right kindling. And once you've got it going, people start to huddle around it, because I mean, there's absolutely no question. Everyone that I've ever spoken to or anything and says, you know, about great guitarists and things, your name at some point comes up in the conversation, nearly always. And I've spoken with some incredible people where I go, do you know Mike? How did you know Mike? And whatever, you know, so you know, there's a couple of people. Tommy Emmanuel was certainly one of them. There was Jacob Collier as well. How did you know Jacob? Did you teach Jacob at some point?
Jacob, I used to teach.
Right. In Manchester. Right.
I used to teach. No, I used to teach him. I used to teach him. I think it was the National Youth Jazz Collective. He was part of that when he was probably. I'm missing the timeline now, but I've known Jacob since he was about 12.
Right.
And I was teaching him then as part of workshops and with the odd piano, the odd private thing where we talk about harmony and stuff. And then I started teaching him at the Royal Academy.
Right. That was what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was more one-to-one, just me and him. And we would talk about all kinds of things. He was really great then anyway. But there were certain things that I thought I felt that I could help him with. I know he posted a thing because a lot of people told me about a thing that he posted, which was a lesson that I gave him.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah. He did something on Facebook. I seem to remember. Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure because I don't really follow any of those the social media things. I've got I do a little, about 2 weeks on Facebook, where I kind of advertise a retreat that I do, and maybe put a few poems and a few funnies up there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I leave all social media alone. Twitter, Instagram, I don't do any of them. So people were sending me this video that Jacob had sent, and occasionally I meet up with Jacob. He's a friend, and we meet up for breakfast, and he tells me what's going on in his life, and I tell him what's happening in mine, and it's a nice hookup. It's a nice vibe. He's a lovely guy, Jacob.
I've met him twice, but it's been really briefly. But he seemed great. He seemed like a really nice guy.
He is, yeah. He's got bundles of energy.
I'd seen that. I think the last time I saw him, he was in a onesie, and then he'd just come off a gig. He'd just come off a stage from doing it, and he was in some kind of onesie gear.
Right. Right. Yeah, that sounds like Jacob.
Not my vibe, but it is a great.
Mine neither. Yeah. I think, I think I'd be instantly locked up if I was walking on the onesie. It's just not, 6'4" and, looking the way like I look like more like a farmer, so it'd be a bit weird, Jacob, he's got an angelic face and he can get away with that sort of stuff. So, but it was a nice lesson that he was talking about, that lesson about, because I was telling him, I was talking about composition, and he was playing melodies, but he was playing the piano, and he wasn't playing through him. He was playing from him. So he was playing the instrument. There's the instrument, and I'm going to play the instrument. And I was trying to get him to play through him, and then play the melody. So there was a number of ways to get him to do that, and he did. As you can imagine, he took it on board. But those kinds of things really intrigued me. Like, one other thing that I told him was to do with composition, which was I asked him to play a chord that was like that could tell me about his father.
Wow.
So I said, play a chord that reminds you of your father, that tells your story about your father. And so he was searching, he was looking for this chord, and then he played with this chord. And I won't tell you how it sounded. And then I said, right, now play your mother. And so he looked for that, and as usual, those two chords were very different.
Very different, yeah.
Yeah, and so I said, well, now there's composition.
Yeah,
there's composition right there. But that is composition that comes through you, rather than thinking, I need to find this. I need to find a nice chord. Oh, that's nice, and maybe that one goes with it. That's external.
Yeah,
and I'm interested in internal. I'm interested in finding out what that internal process is, finding out where that is, and then expressing that through music.
That's an amazing and unique approach.
Yeah, I mean, when I met I knew that a lot of people would be trying to shape you in a certain way, because you were so natural. I mean, it was just natural what you were doing, very natural. And I felt, well, we've got to try and nurture that. We've got to nurture that natural thing. And you were always interested in, well, what is that? What am I doing there? What is it? So and then I would say, well, it's this. What can we do with it? How can you express yourself with it? So it was that. It's very delicate when you're teaching people that have got that natural ability. You really don't want to drown it. You don't want to do anything. You want to nurture it. You want them to express themselves.
Yeah.
It's always a beautiful thing when they do.
And I think that approach, and certainly I've never really heard anybody talk about that. creating something that's coming through you rather than external. You know, I've heard of it in other fields, and I think we should get onto this in a minute with everything you were doing with counseling and stuff.
Yeah.
We should talk about that. But in terms of the approach to music, that internal combustion engine, that's kind of what I meant before about the fire. I feel like it's sort of you've really lit that fire, and it's so warm and bright, and everyone can see it. And I think that is the fundamental reason why your name keeps cropping up. And as I was going to talk about the social media side of things and everything, because this is a battle that a lot of new musicians face, which is, how do I get my TikTok stats? How do I get my and Claire, you said before, you're not interested in any of that. You've obviously managed to carve that path, career, whatever you want to call it, build the life without any of that in mind. And you've done it entirely from just the kind of the energy and the power that you have within yourself. And that's amazing. So segueing onto that, is that, how did you get into the counseling side of things? Because obviously I realized that a lot of people would come to you a lot for musical problems and musical advice. But I realized that sometimes, I myself even would come to you and think, I'm really looking forward for just a chat with Mike, regardless of whether he can tell me about this Locrian mode or something. So how did you get into that? And was it a natural thing for you? Was it something you always wanted to do? How did it grow?
It came through fairly early on, and it probably came from what I came out of. And what I came out of, which was a household with, no father and a schizophrenic mother. My dad died when I was 4, and my mother suffered with schizophrenia most of her life before they got the cocktail of drugs right, and that calmed her somewhat. So I was coming out of that history. So there was a certain feeling when I was teaching. There was a certain feeling that it was like, I feel you need this. I feel you need this right now. And I feel there's something else going on that's stopping you from expressing yourself. And I'm going to try and find out what that is. It came from that as a combination, and a combination of people saying, look, when I'm at home, I'm fine. When I'm on stage, I'm a nervous wreck. So that completely, that thing of me being somewhat intuitive, and then this other thing, which was a real world situation of, this is happening, and when I got on stage, I'm like this, So it kind of, that was an obvious pathway. Those two things coming together was a beautiful sort of symbiosis to move me into more of a counselling position. So yeah, it just happened very naturally. So it was a vocational thing at first. And it worked. I would take people through certain things, and I'd think about it, and I think, you know what, you need this. And then I'd take them through and say, right, okay, play in front of me. Respect me. You think I'm really good at what I do, So let's use me as your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a contributor, exactly. So I'd get them to play, and it'd be real. It'd be in the moment, real. How do you feel now?
Yeah.
How do you feel now? And then it was about what they were doing, in order to make it okay, in order for them to be accepted. So what they would do to be validated is play something that was external from them. We're coming back to that internal and external thing. They try and play things that were external to who they really were and what they really knew from inside. So they would play this stuff that they would think gets them their ticket to heaven, and but actually it became a ticket to hell because they couldn't execute it, because they were taking a run and jump to it, and it wasn't coming from them. And so when you find a way where they're playing something that's much more simple, but it is coming from them, and then you get them to experience that. So I would encourage them, as I'd be playing and they would play something. I'd get them. I'd do that through restriction. So I'd say, look, you can't do this. This is a lick-free zone.
Yeah.
So it's a lick-free zone. So, and you can only play, quarter notes or minims, or which is, crotchets or minims. And you have to improvise, and you have to play from you. Or I would say, right now, play, improvise with those, and play a situation. Play how you felt this morning. Play a breakup. Play joy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they would look at and feel music in a different way than, I need to play this for you in order to be accepted by you and to prove that I'm good. So it was that really. And I got into counselling through that process.
I suppose the process, it's not related. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's once you've kind of got access to that internal truth, and you're channeling that, I suppose you could apply that to music or to art or to life or to business or to anything, I suppose. Exactly. Is that how you view it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's a core, and we tend to press things onto that core that shouldn't be there, that are kind of validatory tools, and we tend to do that, and the core, the essence, gets blinded. It gets hidden, and it can't breathe, and the only time it really comes out is, as Alan Watts said, at the center of a belly laugh. The center of a belly laugh is the truth. You're not trying. Your face might contort in a certain way in the center of a belly laugh, but you're not bothered.
Yeah.
You're not bothered how you look in the center of a belly laugh. No
apprehension. There's no pretense. There's no anything. Yeah, it's honest. It's honest. Yeah,
really honest. So it's that. It's cultivating that, so that you are you're moving through your natural self. You know what I mean? If I think too much about what I'm saying to you because this is a podcast, I'm dead. I'm dead in the water.
That's it. That's
it right now. So if I think, I need to get in, my vocabularies, the words are too short, I need to get into, I need to say onomatopoeia or something. You know what I mean? So if I start thinking like that, it's gone. Well, our nature, our naturalness has gone. And for me, that's where the essence is.
It's a journey about becoming as natural with everything as possible,
and being at one with that, being okay with your, with your little feebles and foibles, You know what I mean?
They're often the best bits.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. It's like that's been in the studio. If I'm ever sort of producing anyone and they go, oh no, let me take that. No, and I say, no, have a listen to that. Listen. Yeah. Oh no, I went wrong. No, listen to it. Let's see. It was so beautiful. And they often sort of go, okay, yeah, no, I'm with you. So and that's an important thing, that Ben, that thing of thinking that you that you know how something is. You know how something is. If we take the studio, for instance, you know, I mean, how many times have you done a gig where you thought, oh yeah, I was really on it there, you
Mhm.
know, and then you listened and you think, oh man, I was overplaying there. It was too much, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
You
totally,
know?
totally.
And then the converse of that, you know, you think, well, it wasn't great, and then you listen to it and you go, oh man, it was so relaxed, you
Yeah,
know.
it was really good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Loads of
that's right.
times, loads of
Yeah.
times, hundreds of times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you gigging much at the moment? Are you where are
Well, at
you?
the moment, I just had a little boy, so
Right, great.
so he's 1 year old now. He's
Right,
just a little bit over one now, so he's 14 months.
right,
So for the last year, I've took a real step back from it. I still am doing shows and I'm still doing session work and things, but I had to say no to a lot of things because it's just been, as you know, quite tough
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
no sleep and all of that
yeah,
stuff.
right,
So,
yeah,
but yes is the answer. There's a few things that's happening next year. There's maybe a couple of tours that I might have to do,
right,
which I'm excited about, and I'm sort of in two minds about it. Really, I feel a little bit like I've got this time with my son now, and and I don't really want to. I don't really want to be away from that at all. And at the same time, I love music and I want to, go and do things and whatever. And so it's, I guess, trying to strike a right balance, and that's
mm,
what I'm going to consider for next year.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
right, yeah. Good, good. And what about counselling? Are you doing any of that? Are you counselling yourself?
So yeah, so I have lots. I have students myself. I do a lot of artist development and stuff, and I find myself in situations like this where I'm having to help them with mostly what I get is the rigors of the music business, but nothing to do with unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned. But it's not to do with the playing side of things. Most of it is to do with the how people get bent out of shape and all sorts of
Right,
things by, I did this deal and it went bad, and then I tried this thing and this guy ran off with the money, and then I can't get my social profile working, and I can't. So I find myself often in the role where I'm troubleshooting the practical side of those things, where I'm trying to say, do this to improve your socials, do this to get all the practical stuff, but at the same time, try to manage that in a way that is healthy and sane and really. My personal approach to it is something very similar to you. I mean, I'm a fan of Alan Watts, Jay Krishnamurti. I'll take anything that I can from Sadhguru, from a lot of other people, and just try to understand what they're all saying, and I'm the same as yourself. I try to bring some of that into certainly the lifestyle stuff. I find that, as I say, for the last 2 years, my playing is like, oh God, how do I play a G again?
right.
Because through lack of sleep. But as I said, I'm facilitating that, and I'm still doing a lot of that. But it's a strange world, and I find that the more I kind of lean into what I know to be true and what is true, the less complicated it is and the easier it is, and I try to, as best as I can, to try to get that across to people, and same as yourself with through music and through all the things that I love doing.
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm, brilliant,
yeah,
brilliant.
man. Yeah, it's interesting to me. So if we could go a little deeper into all that stuff,
Yeah, yeah, go.
I feel like to me, as you said before, that kind of finding the truth and having it flow through you is something that ultimately can fix not only your musical approach, but can fix the life approach. Do you find people are, not resistant, but do you find people kind of look at you sometimes and going, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're saying. And you must do. How do you overcome that? How do you try to sort of break down the wall, as it were?
If I'm giving workshops, I do. Um, one of the things is in breaking down barriers is to uh, to make sure that you kind of reflect on your own vulnerabilities, and that can be in the moment as well.
Yeah.
Things can happen in the moment where you whatever can happen in a workshop situation. I move into them. I don't move away from them. I don't try and cover them up. I move into my humanness and the fact that I'm flawed. I don't want to be a wise guy in those situations, but that in itself carries some wisdom. You know. So, and people feel that, and you know, if you're in a conversation with someone, and you can get them to open up if you're open.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I find that is how it is, and if you're open to stuff that you don't know, stuff that you can't do, stuff that you got wrong either now or in the past, then they feel safe, and they'll share those things with you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
For some people, it's very difficult to do that, especially off the bat.
Definitely.
But in workshops, I tend to do that, and what I found is in workshops, if I do that in a workshop about anything, whether it's improvisation or interaction or whatever, you know, theory, or it doesn't matter what it is, harmony. Like for instance, I do a guitar retreat. And I teach about 20 guitars, so they all come. I do it in the Lake District. And, you know, one of the first things I say is, look, I know a shitload about music, harmony, improvisation, how to put it over, etc. If I don't know, if somebody asks me a question and I don't know it, I'm going to throw it open to the room. And then if somebody knows it, you know, get your hand up and let us all know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they immediately go, okay,
yeah, thank God.
Thank God for that. He doesn't, of course he doesn't know everything.
Human.
Yeah, he's just human, you know. So, and I'm really, you know, and that, I remember Bill Frisell?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was on a gig, I was doing a concert with Bill Frisell, and we were in the dressing room. And Bill has, you know, he's fantastic. He's got his own vibe. He's played with everyone. He's a beautiful guy. And I'm playing something in the dressing room, and I could feel him. I could feel his presence coming over closer and closer, and he's sort of ambling over to me, sort of slowly and slowly. And I sort of I looked up at him like that, and he went, "Show me that," like that. It was really funny. It was really funny, but that's it. I mean, that's why Bill Frisell is so great, because he's got no bother about any of that. You know, it's like, you know, beautiful. So that is part of it. That's that sort of breaking down the barriers with people, and that thing of, Mike, what are you talking about? Often I cloak very important things in very colloquial language.
I've got some corkers that I remember that you said over the years.
Right.
I remember you told, I can't remember if it was me or it was the bassist in the room, and I think his name is Jake. I think his name is Jake. And I remember you said something like, it was all wrong. The sound was wrong, and we were getting it wrong. And I remember you said, "Stop, everyone." Jake or me, I can't remember who. You need to attack this like you're eating a steak. And we were all kind of hanging on, like, okay. And I remember all you did was just stare at him and just go. And somehow, though, what blew me away is that somehow he just kind of went, right, okay, and then
Right.
go back
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Yeah.
and it all
Yeah.
kind of clicked together, and it was
Right. Yeah. There was a lot. There was a lot of those sort of things. There was a lot of those sort of things in terms of So that would have been in terms of savoring each bite. So that would be to do with that.
yeah,
Really savoring what you were doing. What you were doing, and taking your time. I remember sort of teaching some ensembles where I'd say to the ensemble, right, so just stop a second. Now, you're slowing. No, no. What would I say? It'd be like it would be to do with. Oh, that was it. That was it. It was like, okay, let's try and play this a little quieter. Now, just play it a little quieter. So and they'd sort of come back in a bit. So just relax a little bit and just be and feel relaxed and just let it be. And so it'd immediately slow down.
yeah,
Right. So it'd be relaxed, but it'd just go straight down. And so, and then if they got excited or they were playing with any kind of energy, it'd speed up. So that pointing out those differences and those the nuances between how one thing can affect another thing when you're playing music is exactly the same thing that is in counselling.
yeah.
Or for instance, somebody was saying that they got all the books, all the self-help books, but what was happening was that they were becoming quotes of self-help books,
Right,
without actually walking the walk, without doing anything about it,
without actually internalizing what was important. Yeah.
So they were totally anxious and stressed all the time, but they could give you these quotes, from Krishnamurti or from any, Alan Watts or Eckhart Tolle or
yeah.
all the usual suspects, So I find that kind of thing happens also. That sort of thing where you get this one input and then you get a negative output, and how one thing can affect another thing in ways that you might not have otherwise considered. And that's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I know that was a long answer. I'm not even sure I answered it, but I feel like I kind of rambled a bit there, but nonetheless.
No, not at all. No, not at all. Would you say that, going strictly to kind of improvisation stuff? Because I know that there's a lot of people that, are constantly saying to me, how do you approach improvisation? And I always go with my kind of go-to box of tricks is all this similar stuff. Let's learn some scales. Let's listen to some music. Let's try and understand, I guess, let's try and understand what is tasty music. That's the only thing that I really try, and I'm I find myself like a broken record trying to repeat myself saying the reason Dreams by Fleetwood Mac is cool is because it's got 2 chords in it and that's it. It's not trying to do any more. It's not trying to do any, and of course we can look at something by John Coltrane, or we can look at something, something absolutely incredible, or, Jacob Collier is a great example, 1,000,000 chords and things like that. But for me, a real simple groove played well is something that to me is the kind of the core of where great improvisers come from. And, that's why like music by Tom Petty and all those guys is just so timeless and so flawless and all that stuff. What would you say is, kind of your go-to, your box of tricks on like trying to teach someone, that, because I find a lot of guitarists in particular, they learn the scales and then they go, I don't know what to do now. And I know all my modes, I know all my major scales, I know all that. Where now? So over to you.
Yeah. It's a loaded question, really. There's a lot involved in that. it, I want to bring it back to what I want to bring it back to. If you're playing a scale, what is the sound of that scale?
Mm.
What does this note feel like? So what does the second feel like? And does it feel differently to the third or the first?
Mm.
And what is that feeling?
Right.
Right? So it's like the mum and dad thing,
Yeah.
play the chord that's your mum, play the chord that's your dad.
Yeah.
What does it feel like? It's bringing it back to the body in a way, bringing it back to the body and saying, okay, this note has a feeling against that chord. Like you play C major, right? Here's a ninth. What does it feel like? Okay, here's the root. What? Give me a feeling for that. I remember being in Germany when I was teaching in Germany. I had a professorship in Weimar, and I was teaching a class, and I got them to give me an image. I had somebody play the chord, and I would play the note.
Right.
And then, and so I'd play the note against the chord. So and then I'd say, right, what's the image of that? What story does that have? So I went through it, and there were all these different, this is, playing this. It's Roman soldiers marching, but if I play this note, the sixth, against this D minor, if I play the sixth, somebody said it's a woman, an old woman looking out of the window. So then what I did was say, okay, I'm not going to tell you what note I'm playing now. I'm just going to play the sound, and I want anybody to say what the image is that we'd got.
Okay.
So I'd play this note, and when I got to the six, they'd go, "Oh, that's the old woman looking out of the window." Right? So it was no longer the sixth; it was this old woman looking out of the window.
Right.
And so therefore, that now that sound is permeated them in a way that is more guttural.
Right.
So for me, if you can get into scales with that kind of idea, because you've got, harmonic minor, melodic minor, all of these different exotic modes, etc., they have feeling in them, inbuilt.
Yeah.
They have inbuilt feeling in them, But if you go la da 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 dee, and that's all you do, well,
there's nothing.
That's it. There's nothing there. It's just that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
So for me, it's getting into the nature of what that scale is and trying to connect that in the body with somebody. That's the difference. For me, that's the difference. And then all you do is say, that's that sound world, and we're going to add this sound world to that sound world.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to go through that sound world, and then there's this other chord, and now you're going to go through this sound world, and the way all the notes permeate that sound world in their own individual ways. So that, for me, is what it's about. And then, you've got Fleetwood Mac, this sound world and this sound world, and then you've got Coltrane, this sound world, this sound world, this sound world, this sound world, and this sound world.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that. It's about that,
It's definitely not. I really, and I always have with you in particular, I've never felt that it was something that was, oh, well, once you've learned your modes, you got to learn your super modes. So, I never felt it was like a practical, you've got to do these exercises to get there. I always felt that it was something that is an emotional connection and is something that is happening internally that you have to kind of solve before you really can express yourself.
Yeah. I wish they'd have been called I wish they'd call them moods rather than modes.
Moods. Yeah, totally. I remember, in fact, to be honest, it was recently that someone was trying to, they were in a roundabout way, they were asking me the difference between something that was a sharp 4 and a flat 5. And the only way I knew how to explain it was I was saying just a flattened 5th is just it's just this darkness, whereas a sharpened 4th is this beautiful, beautiful lush colorscape. And they were going, no, but it's the same note. And I was going, no, it's not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the technical term is the sharp 4 has a 5.
Yeah.
So in the scale, there's a 5.
There's
so you have to call
in the scale.
4. Yeah. Whereas flat 5, if it's a flat 5, there's no 5th in the scale.
Yeah. And so you got this uneasy, angsty feeling. Yeah, this unresolved kind of feeling. And
yeah. So with a flat 5, you'll have a 4th. But with a sharp 4, you've got a 5th.
Got a 5th that nicely just distributes the 1 and the 5 together with that beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say that next time.
Yeah, that's right. That's the technical thing. I like your vibe, kind of better. But there's this that's the marriage. That's the marriage of the technical and the guttural, isn't it? I like that.
I don't know about you. I've always tended to see certain sounds in colors. I'm not, I'm not, what's the term? Synesthesia. I'm not, I'm not diagnosed with anything like that or whatever. But there's certain sounds I can describe colors to, definitely. I don't know how vividly I can do that. But the Lydian sharp 4 thing always is like this beautiful purple color. And I have playlists on my devices that are called different colors, and I have different mood, and they all sort of have real different moods. And that kind of like Creedence Clearwater Revival is kind of like an orangey yellow sort of vibe for me. That kind of, like a warmth to it, but a bit rusty and raw and something. And but the purple thing is like this beautiful enigmatic. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if ever you've ever experienced anything or know anything about that.
No, not really. No. Messiaen was synesthetic. I'm not sure if I know Jacob is. Jacob has perfect pitch.
Yes. Yeah.
Jacob has perfect pitch. What a piano player that I play with a lot, a guy called Gwilym Simcock. He's got perfect pitch. He's just been touring with Pat Metheny. He's been Pat Metheny's piano player for probably the last 4 years or something. He's got perfect pitch, but it drives him nuts. It drives him crazy, Me, I've got very good relative pitch, but usually I can tell you what, if you play, usually I can say what a chord is,
Yeah.
If I hear the chord, I'll say, okay, that's, sharp 9, sharp 11. That's a Lydian chord. This is an Aeolian chord.
Yeah.
I can hear them pretty much straight away,
Yeah.
But what I couldn't do is tell you the key.
Interesting.
I couldn't say that's, I've got a little bit of an idea. I'll get close, but I can't do it spot on. Jacob just could say that's A flat minor.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Wow, man. In terms of like sort of advice for people, wanting to get into music, to try to better themselves at music and maybe make a career out of it and do all the things that that you're doing and whatever. Do you have any kind of just advice, something that is a good bit of something to leave us on, to kind of say this is try this, do this, something that
I suppose I guess we've covered it in a way. You probably know what I'm going to say, but I think it's to mine one's own life, one's own thoughts and feelings, and not be afraid of them, and also not to be a chameleon, not to be I have to do and say what these other people are doing and saying. you know. That for me, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that. You have to search for it, you know. If you know, it's like if you listen to Joni, you know, Joni, she got music out in a way that pertained to her. I remember John Guerin, really great drummer that's not with us anymore, used to play with Joni and was also her partner for a while. But he used to say, you know, she'd play a song and she'd play it the same way, you know, and I'd say, Joni, you know, that's a 5/8 bar, you know, and she'd say, really? What?
You know, have no idea. Yeah.
I had no idea, you know. It was just what was in her. It was the nature of her, you know. So that for me is to mine your own nature, to not be afraid of that, and to move into your own life and write about you and your own life and write. And when I say write, I mean through music. It doesn't have to be words. It can be, of course, you know. But through music, to get the sounds. What you know? How can you convey this time of your life in sound? Like that, rather than moving onto it. Like right, I have to get this. I have to do. What's this chord? I have to get this chord, and then I get another chord, and then I get another chord. But it doesn't pertain to you particularly at all. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get into it by doing that. I'm not saying that. It's just that a lot of people don't do it the way that I'm thinking about it. I have a way of doing it where I use both. I use the craft. That's my understanding of theory and my knowledge of it all.
Yeah.
I use that craft, but first of all, I go with my feeling. So if I'm on Sibelius or something, like I'm rubbish at Sibelius, you know, because I'm so, you know, everything's like, right, okay, there's this. Oh, I need to move through this mood. It's that,
yeah,
you know, and it's all very in the moment. I can hear it going as I'm playing. So when I get on Sibelius, it stops it all.
Yeah,
because I have to go, right, how do I get that thing in there? And I've got to press that. You know,
I hate Sibelius myself.
Bloody Neanderthal, you know, and but at the same, I found a way now of moving through Sibelius. If it's, you know, if I'm doing one note at a time, you know, that I can get a little bit of that kind of natural movement, and so I move, and then I listen back and I listen to the tune and I think, oh, okay, there's a melody right there, okay, and then I can use craft. I can use craft.
Yeah,
I can use Bach or my understanding of how melody moves.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So my thing would be to move into your own story and try and convey that story. And you'll always have stories. If you're alive, you've got stories, right? You know, you could write about, you know, your 2 a.m., 3 a.m. scenarios with the baby, right? So so you could write about those sort of things, and you can write about them in an honest way. You know, one time you were frustrated, one time you felt that you had some beam of light of joy in you, you know, like you're overcome with emotion, or, you know, mind those things.
Yeah.
They're all very beautiful, you know.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for doing this, Mike. I really, really appreciate it. And it's so good to see you again.
Yeah, you might have to use that editing button a little bit. I mean, I think I might have catched on a few times, but nonetheless, it's what I was saying. You know, you've just got to let it flow. You know, so you might have to get into the old
Oh,
You
that's
know,
fine. I know I prefer the unabridged raw, the
right,
raw
okay,
truth.
fair enough.
Thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Okay.
All right, buddy. Take care.